Premier Doug Ford calls them disgusting people who ought to be in jail with the key thrown away. He's talking about those who are trying to scam people and government during this pandemic. With us for more on the incidence of such schemes, we welcome, in North Bay, Ontario, Jeff Thomson, Senior RCMP Intelligence Analyst at the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre, and in Parry Sound, Ontario, Rachel Jolicoeur, Director of Fraud Prevention and Partnerships for the Interac Corporation. Good to have you two on TVO tonight. Rachel, get us started. What types of fraud have we been seeing since the COVID-19 pandemic took effect?
Well, Steve, the pandemic has created an environment where people are feeling more isolated and vulnerable, yet they rely on technology. So that has set the grounds for criminals to exploit Canadians and try to get them to give out their banking credentials. So some of the types of fraud that we're seeing is the part where the government disbursement one, where we know that the CERB is actually dispersing funds to those who need it. And criminals are taking advantage of that by sending phishing emails and phishing texts, trying to fool Canadians into clicking on the link and giving access to their banking credentials.
So give us a sense of how that hit works. Just follow up on that if you would. So I get a text and it says what, and asks me to do what?
It says that your funds are available for disbursement due to the application of the Canadian Emergency Benefit.
Response benefit, yeah.
Yes, thank you. And so people, because they are expecting that, they think that they're going to click on the link and then there will be instructions on how to deposit the funds. But really what it is that it's criminals that are passing as the government and trying to get people to disclose banking information to them. And we know the government has already shared this information, is that the funds are going to be dispersed in two ways, one by check and the other one by direct deposit. So this is an easy way to spot a scam if you do receive a text or an email saying to deposit the funds in any other way than those two methods that I've mentioned.
And it probably looks pretty fancy too, right? It's probably got like a Government of Canada logo on it or a Canadian flag or something just to fool you even more?
Exactly. They're very good at replicating the website and emails that are being sent out. So this is why I always say go back to the source. So if you think that it is legitimate, then just go back, sign in with your credentials to the government and go directly to the website and then look to see if that's really a true email communication from the government.
Gotcha. Okay, Jeff, what kinds of stuff are you seeing?
Similar stuff. So phishing is definitely the top reported scam that we're seeing.
When you say phishing, we should remind everybody it's like PHISHING, phishing as in, you know, they're looking for mischief.
Yeah, phishing for your information, essentially, just what Rachel described. So that's the top reported one, but we're also seeing, emergency scams, loan scams, job scams, and a few extortion scams popping up. So there's different scams out there, and I'm not even touching on the merchandise scams where the websites are offering free face masks or hand sanitizer, miracle cures, testing kits. So you name it, the fraudsters are running amok right now.
Okay, I got to follow up on a few of those. Fake job scams. What does that look like?
So yeah, right now with heightened unemployment, we're seeing people being solicited by email, being offered jobs to be financial agents essentially. So their job is to receive money for company ABC, and then move that money along to the fraudsters via Bitcoin. So you're going to be a transfer agent for the company, and you're going to receive direct deposits into your bank account, and you're going to have to withdraw that and then send the money via Bitcoin to the fraudsters.
And how about, you mentioned, for example, personal protective equipment. What kind of stuff are you seeing on that?
Mainly face masks, but we've also seen some hand sanitizers being offered through some of the online websites. But again, it's primarily the face masks and some test kits as well.
Now, these folks, I imagine, who do this are a nasty piece of business at the best of times, and these are not the best of times. So what kind of person tries to take advantage of vulnerable people during the midst of a global pandemic where everybody's worried about getting sick and dying?
Well, yeah, that's a great question. I mean, fraudsters know no bounds. They have no morals. they're out there to make a buck any way they can. We've seen it in other situations, world news events, where they preyed on people with charity scams. I think about Hurricane Katrina in this case, where our U.S. law enforcement partners had to quickly stand up, a charity fraud task force to fight the charity scams that popped up after Hurricane Katrina.
Rachel, what do you know about the kinds of people who do this kind of thing?
Well, I do know that they're just opportunistic. So the opportunities are there. There's nothing new. These scams, as Jeff mentioned, job scams, the online merchandise and the government relief scams, this is nothing new. This is something that has been going on for years. It's just that they're really repurposing those scams and focusing on Canadians when they're more vulnerable. They're having information, getting at them at all kinds of information from all sides, and it's really becoming difficult to decipher what's true from what's not true. So I think we're just a bit more vulnerable, and they are taking advantage of that.
Do they target any particular demographic when they want to create one of their scams?
Well, these are mass marketing emails that they're sending out there. So they're deploying hundreds of thousands of texts and emails, and it's just a matter of who's going to click on it. So I don't think they're particularly focusing or narrowing on specific individuals. It's really everyone is a possible target for them.
I would imagine, though, Jeff, that for example, older people who are home alone and maybe feeling the effects of isolation in particular might be prone to be targeted for this kind of thing. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, seniors do represent a disproportionate number of victims or reports that we receive. But as Rachel points out, it's really a game of numbers. They're sending these things out en masse. They're trying to get as many people to respond as possible. And really preying on what you're saying, the isolation, and not to mention the fear and anxiety that exists right now. So that anxious state that people are in will cause more people to react. Click on the links, open the attachments, and that's what they're really hoping for. So it's a game of numbers, and they want people to react.
Rachel, let's go back to that first example you gave us about the CERB, the Emergency Response Benefit, and you mentioned that they send out hundreds of thousands, if not more, of text messages to people. This may sound like a very naive question, but sorry, I'm not up on my fraud these days. How do they get people's cell phone numbers in the first place? Or are they just trying all sorts of different combinations, or how does it work?
Well, those lists are available pretty much everywhere. I think you can purchase the list. I know on the black market there are several lists out there that are available as well, and they just repurpose the list over and over again, and eventually someone will click on the link. If you change it from, originally it was a CRA scam because people were filing their taxes, now they're just using it for the CERB. So it's just a matter of changing the word, the messaging a little bit more, taking advantage of the emergency, and hoping that victims will click on the link.
And what kinds of repercussions, if any, are we going to see as a result of the attempts of these scams?
Well, that's a good question, Steve, because we're not seeing the fraud losses yet. What we are seeing is that there are several attempts, and what we assume is that people are falling for them. For those who do, then the criminals are just harvesting those credentials. So they're taking all the information that they're able to, they're holding onto them and selling them onto the dark web. And eventually, we suspect that once the pandemic, or once we return to whatever the new normal is, and people are interacting again, that we will see the repercussion of all those job scams and government scams, of all those frauds are going to come to fruition. And that's when we're going to see the real impact of this.
Okay, I heard a new expression there. Jeff, I want you to help us understand what the dark web is.
Well, the dark web, it's a great question. It's basically a section of the internet that you need to use certain types of browsers to access. Onion servers or the Tor program is one that I can think of. But it's it looks like your typical internet, but to be able to access this part of the internet, you need to use specific browsers to get there.
And Rachel, what kind of information is available in the dark web that I wouldn't see in 95% of the rest of the internet?
I think you can pretty much find anything you're looking for. But really, like Jeff said, this is a black online, the dark web. It's a marketplace for criminals. That's where they sell all this financial information, and buyers go on there and they purchase it, and then they can use it the way that they want to. So it's just an online market, but for criminals.
In which case, Jeff, what can you folks do at the Anti-Fraud Center to protect people from the ravages of this kind of fraud and the dark web in particular?
Well, what you got to remember is your average internet user is not going to be solicited through the dark web, right? So, and again, these web browsers are meant to keep the criminals anonymous. It's a way for people to interact anonymously. That's the main reason behind it. If we go back to describing the use of the personal information, the harvesting of the personal information, it's really a three-part crime, right? So you have the harvesting of the data, and then you have the sale of the data, and that's what you're going to see in the dark web. Is this data that's going to be sold online in a criminal marketplace in the dark web. And then the third part would be the fraud spend. So once it's sold, somebody's purchased it, and they're going to complete these fraud spends or the cash outs. Which again will happen in the real world. So it's a portion of the crime that's happening on the dark web, and it's the sale of the credentials.
Jeff, have you got an estimate as to how many people are on the receiving end of a fraudulent attempt or an attempt to defraud them, and perhaps a dollar figure, what it represents?
We're up over 350 reports as of April 10th, my most recent data, and that's since March 6th. Approximately 65 have been classified as victims. And a victim for us isn't just financial loss. It can include the loss of personal information, the impact of malware, I guess, ransomware on somebody's computer, and then money loss. So we don't have exact figures on dollar loss yet, but I know we were over 100,000, and I think one victim accounted for about half of that.
One victim accounted for half of that. Do you know what that story was?
Yeah, it was an extortion scam that occurred in the Mandarin language. Mandarin-speaking community was being hit with extortion scams, essentially saying you've been implicated in shipping fraud packages to, I think it was Beijing in this case. And the story went on that, you're implicated in all this stuff, and we're going to freeze your accounts, and you need to send your money here. And unfortunately, the money was sent, but also fortunately, some of the money was recovered. So in this particular case, money did return to the victim, but we got lucky here.
Now, Rachel, that does raise the issue of what percentage of the stuff that you're investigating is a made-in-Canada attempt at fraud, and how much of it originates in the shores or offshore beyond the boundaries of Canada. Any sense of that?
Well, that's something that I can't really comment on because we don't do investigations. What we do is we assist law enforcement with their investigation. So we work with our partners, such as the Canadian Anti-Fraud Center, the financial institutions, and law enforcement. So they would know really where this originates from. But we do know that they are targeting Canadians.
Jeff, you want to follow up on that? Any sense of what percentage of your work involves offshore attempts?
I'd pretty much say all of it today. You have victims in Canada, fraud starting in, I'll use the UK, hitting Canadians and money going to Hong Kong, right? So a typical fraud today, you're looking at 3 different countries, and that's very simplistic. So it's international in scope, and when you think of the logistics to organize something like that, it's serious and organized crime at the end of the day.
So there really is not a crown prince in Nigeria who wants to go into business with me?
No, unfortunately not.
It's good to know, because I almost fell for that one. Let's just put some information up here that we can share with you and our viewers. Last month, incidentally, March, was Fraud Prevention Month, and Interac surveyed more than 2,200 Canadians about their attitudes about fraud and prevention. And here are those numbers. 62% say they are concerned about fraud more than ever. They're more concerned than ever right now. Almost half have fallen victim to fraud, or at least almost half would acknowledge it. My bet is there's more than that, some of whom are embarrassed to acknowledge it. 2 in 5 Canadians have clicked a link from an unknown source. Half of Canadians do not change their online banking or email password regularly, something you would think would help diminish the amount of fraud that could take place. And yet 71% say they can spot fraud. Almost 3 out of 4 Canadians insist that they are smart enough to be able to catch fraud. So Rachel, let me ask you about this. How would you grade Canadians when it comes to their level of literacy on identifying fraud and knowing what to do about it?
Well, Steve, you've seen the numbers. I mean, I think they speak for themselves. There are so many scams out there that we think we can identify a fraud scam, yet there is a need for fraud literacy. And that's because there's so much information that's coming at them. What it is telling us, though, is that we need to stay on top of all the current fraud scams. And I know that that's not easy, but there are different ways that we can identify easily how to spot a scam. And some of the things, thank you. So some of the ways to look at it is if there's an act for urgency, a need to urgently respond to an email, then that most likely should be a clue that it is a scam. So don't rush into anything. I always say, stop for a second, think about it, scrutinize it. And if it is, you identify that it is a fraud, then report it. We can't stop what we don't know, which is why it's really important for people to report in to the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre what the frauds are, because then in turn they are sharing that information with us and with law enforcement, and we can do something about it.
Jeff, is it the case with you though that you have seen it all, or are there actually some new things in there that you look at, investigate, and you think, wow, now that's some ingenuity I hadn't seen before. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, I mean, the fraudsters are coming up with new ways of doing business every day. Whether it's advertising through social media websites or receiving money through virtual currencies such as Bitcoin, so they definitely keep us on our toes. Even how they solicit their potential victims. We talked about these mass text messages going out. So we've also seen the robo-dialers where Canadians were receiving countless calls claiming to be the Revenue Canada Agency or Canada Revenue Agency and Service Canada. So they have these machines that are capable of dialing, numbers one right after another, right? So anybody that's got a phone is essentially going to get a call. So they don't know bounds, and the frauds just keep coming.
Well, Premier Doug Ford said at one of his news conferences the other day that even he thought he had a lead on some, thousands and thousands of personal protective equipment, masks, for example. And as they kind of tracked it down and tracked it down and tracked it down, they ultimately discovered that there was nothing at all, that somebody had in fact tried to defraud the government of Ontario and the Premier of Ontario through a series of phone calls and stuff. What percentage of the folks who do that can you actually catch?
Well, catching the fraudsters is a bit of a challenge, right? We just talked about the international scope of the activity, but rest assured it does happen. I know, at the end of March, I believe it was, we saw Toronto Police and Homeland Security in the U.S. make an arrest in relation to fake test kits, I believe it was. More recently, we've seen some news out of Singapore about some COVID-19 test kits and some arrests over there. So they do get stopped and they do get arrested. But it does take time because you're working with international partners, you're working with laws in different countries. So just the collection of evidence can be challenging.
Rachel, do I assume the best defense against this is just not to get scammed in the first place, because the odds on getting arrested are really in the favor of the criminals, I suspect.
Yeah, really, we are the first line of defense. And what COVID-19 has taught us is to develop personal hygiene habits. And the same should be done with cyber hygiene. Change your password on a regular basis. Don't click on suspicious links. And when it comes to job scams or buying equipment online, really research those businesses to ensure that you're dealing with the right people and the legitimate business.
Now, I did a little freelancing when I put those numbers up there. I said 48% of those surveyed had fallen victim to fraud. And then I suspected the number's a lot higher, but people just don't want to admit it. Okay, I was just guessing. Is the number probably higher because people are afraid to admit it?
I suspect that it would be higher. I mean, there is some embarrassment to admitting that someone fell victim. I know that all the fraud is not being reported accurately. It's being underreported. So that's why it's really important, I reiterate, to make sure that it is reported to the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre, which is the central source for all fraud reporting, because I think the number is much higher than the 48% that we found.
Jeff, there are a lot of people who are working from home for the first time, either ever or in a very long time. And they are accustomed to having, for example, if they work in a reasonably large-sized business, they're accustomed to having an IT office in their workplace who deal with all of these issues. Now they're home, they're on their own. There's no IT you can call for help that'll drop by in a moment's notice. Okay, we're getting advice from public health people to wash our hands. Talk to us about computer hygiene and other things like that. What can we be doing right now that we're not doing?
Right. So I mean, step one is making sure your devices, your computer, your laptops are all up to date. Your software is up to date, that your antivirus is up to date. Ensuring that you've got passwords for specific programs. If you're logging into work through VPNs, making sure your Wi-Fi is secure. It's really making sure that everything is secure, password protected, and making sure everything's up to date are sort of the key things to think about.
Rachel, anything to add to that in terms of advice?
I think Jeff mentioned most of it, but one of the things I think we forget because we're in isolation is that it's okay to pick up the phone when normally we would just nudge our colleague and just ask them a question. Well, we can do the same thing here. It's just a little bit more difficult, but it's okay to pick up the phone or send them a text and say, "Did you send me this file? Did you mean to make this request? Like, is it you?" So just validating where all this information is coming from before acting on it, because I know my email inbox has probably tripled because people just shoot emails as opposed to just walking over to the person and asking them the question. So let's not forget what we used to do. Maybe it's a little bit more difficult, but it will alleviate a lot of the problems down the road if we just pick up that phone or send a quick message.
We've got to do that due diligence ourselves now, don't we?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to ask you this question. How often do you change your password, Rachel?
Oh my God, too often. And that's the balance between the risk and the convenience. So I probably change my password every 30 days. Now, this is also prompted by my computer and by the IT that sits behind all the software. But I also, not only does it need to be just a password, but I really like to use a passphrase. So something really complicated for criminals, but easy for me to remember. And that can be just a phrase like, "I enjoy walking, !, my dog," and then a number. And that is very difficult for criminals to be able to break, as opposed to just a password like password 123, which is probably the easiest one to guess. So making very complex passphrase, I think, is the way to go, and changing it on a regular basis is going to save you the hassle down the line.
How do you remember them, though?
That's where I have a vault that keeps track of all my passwords. So in order to get into that, I have dual authentication. So not only is it a password, but it also does a fingerprint scan, or I can also do an iris scan. So then the criminals would have to have access to both of that information in order to get into the vault.
Okay. Jeff, last question for you. How often do you change your password?
Same as Rachel, it's pretty routine and prompted by our IT people. So, it comes up for me and prompts me to change passwords when I need to do that. On a personal level, it's probably every 30 to 60 days that I'm changing passwords, just to make sure that I'm staying secure. And again, as Rachel pointed out, like a passphrase is the way to go. It's something I employ as well. Something that helps you remember it, but also, something where you can change it as you go, right?
Good advice from you too. Thanks to both of you, Rachel Jolicoeur and Jeff Thomson, for coming on to TVO tonight and helping us out with this. And you two, I know, never get scammed, and hopefully with your advice, the rest of us won't either. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
The Agenda with Steve Paikin is brought to you by the Chartered Professional Accountants of Ontario. CPA Ontario is a regulator, an educator, a thought leader, and an advocate. We protect the public. We advance our profession. We guide our CPAs. We are CPA Ontario. And by viewers like you. Thank you.